Back. Welcome to Print Your Game Podcast, the podcast about what's new and awesome in 3D printing for gaming. I'm your host, Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Param, and I'm joined by
Christian Sowards, also known as Seventh Mastery.
In today's episode, we have a guest I love to chat with, game designer Quinn Murphy. Hey, Quinn, thanks for joining
Hey,
us.
Hey, Gwen.
thanks for having me.
So, for those of you who don't know Quinn, could you give us the elevator pitch about who y'all are and what you do?
Hey, yeah, I am a computer nerd by day, I guess all the time, and game designer by night. Also, I guess all the time. It's a weird double. I'm vibrating on multiple frequencies. Um, but relevant to us here is my work as a freelance game designer. I've been doing it for over a decade at this point. I got my start running a fourth edition blog called At Will, and I've written for games from Marvel Super Heroes to Aeon, Trinity to most recently, and for most of the stuff I do these days, for Pathfinder and Starfinder with Paizo.
Awesome. Yeah, I've got for fans of some of my other shows, I've gotten to chat with Quinn over on No Direction before, so you might be familiar with them. But do need to check out Quinn's stuff. Brilliant game design work, absolutely wonderful. And his Twitter account is also great to follow just for general nerdy awesomeness, which is why he's here today, because I've seen you have been bitten by the resin bug. And your 3D addiction rivals my own, and your painting pace beats mine, and that takes some doing. So tell us a little bit about how you started getting into 3D printing and really loving it.
I've been I feel like I've been on the periphery of the 3D printing realms for like a really long time. Like I look at it, I was like, oh, that's so cool, and but it is there was like this kind of between day job, being a father, being a partner, and all this other stuff. My tolerance and ability to like really like do the sort of fix it gear stuff is generally minimal at the end of a day. So I had to like wait for things to get to a certain level of ease where it's like, hey, I can like do this, run it, print it, and do it, and we're there. Like I've always keeping watching it. Before I got my first printer, I'd been like watching videos and sort of studying stuff for like maybe like 5-6 months, and then I pulled the trigger, and man, it was so easy. And I just started resin printer go burr.
What resin printer did you get first?
The Anycubic Photon Mono X. God, it's so long to say. 6K.
All right.
Okay, that's a good printer.
Yeah, I destroyed its little brother once. It still haunts my garage because they did send me a part to fix it, but I haven't torn it apart yet. Alex wants to know your superhero identity, by the way, if you get a second.
My superhero secret identity. God, I've gone through so many. I'm like say like, what is my current? I don't know. I guess I just I'm not sure. I don't have a good answer to that one actually.
You said you worked on Aeon Trinity. Did you work on Aberrant for that version?
No, just the Aeon. The default.
I will stop picking at your superhero threads then, but we'll maybe circle back to it. Sorry. Okay, Anycubic Mono X 6K, go.
So my dirty secret on that is I actually I'm on my second one because so one thing that I wasn't aware of or hadn't thought of, I had a spill and did not clean it in time. I still have the machine, and I'm like, intending to like at some point try and clean the Z motor, but the Z motor is stuck.
Oh, it got
solid
a
on the
motor. Yikes!
Oh
yeah, it got
boy!
a motor. So I'm like, and I know, and I know that Anycubics like support is like maybe not the best, so I haven't like really gone through the chain of it.
I have no idea what you mean there.
It's okay. You don't have to worry about saving that relationship on this show.
So yeah, so lesson learned on that one, and so that has that expensive mistake has made me like very like devout in my process now, and cleaning up spills and sort of being super careful. I didn't have much space. Like when I first ran it, I had it like tucked in our smaller hobby room, and so it was like really cramped up there. I actually had to like build a small like mini room in my basement. I call it the printing dungeon. But now that I have the space, it's much easier to sort of keep everything sorted and cleaned and all of that stuff.
Yeah, I've been getting one of those set up upstairs, same sort of thing, because I was trying to run it kind of in my game room initially, and then it was the garage, and then it got too cold, or resin got too hot, or whatever. So dedicated space is bueno. Dusky the Dino Puncher says hello, hello, friends. And
Hello.
Caitlin thinks you are very kind about your description of Anycubics customer service.
I try to practice kindness at all times.
Dusky, glad to see you again. Have you collected the newest? What was they called again? Glow. The cool.
What the little guys from Dragon Trappers?
Yes, the new one has a little wizard hat on. They just released it today, and I was like, "Yes, I get my little dragon hat thingy."
Yeah, Dusky's actually in my TikTok Strixhaven game right now.
Awesome.
Yep. He threatened people to sleep with tentacles, as I recall. He's a fathomless warlock. He has tentacle powers. That's all.
So obviously, besides the small little destroyed a printer, which, let's just be honest, a good percentage of us destroy our first printer. That's sort of a learning experience in this hobby. It seems like you've kind of come out of the gate running since then. You've really recovered. You've printed a whole elf army, which I have to love that you printed an elf army.
Yeah. I printed one for. I'm trying to get my partner into wargaming. To just try it out. And see whether she likes it. So I was like, hey, so what kind of army would you like? And sort of like basically like printed to order. What she wanted there. So and then painted it up, and so we haven't. Things have been kind of crazy, so we haven't like gotten a first game together. But like we'll probably do that shortly. And yeah, it's fun.
So how are you enjoying being able to make anything you want on command?
It is really like intoxicating. I was at first, but also still, right? I have a bunch of things I have on deck to like slice up and like get on print. Like when we're done here, I'll like be like running up. It's just like it becomes part of the rhythm of my days. Like I might take a few days break from it, busy with other stuff, but then I like just get right back to it. And it's like, cool, I'm going to print this out. And sometimes I have specific themes in mind. Sometimes you just like that would be interesting to have, and so like I'll find something to do with it, right? Just constantly building stuff.
Yeah, and it certainly makes you feel like you're doing something when you're doing something less tangible. Like I find if I'm editing, which drives me crazy and feels like I'm getting nothing done, at least I can have a whole thing of trolls rising up out of the goo in the other room, and I feel like something's happening. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That have you been tempted by the filament printers yet? Have you wanted to print the giant castle?
Yeah. Actually, I really want to. I've been sitting on I've been looking at the Bamboo Labs X1 Carbon.
Oh yes,
That
carbon.
yeah, that I look at that one and it's like everything I've been reading about it is like real fast, kind of like simple setup, more money than other things, but like again with that time requirement, it's like okay, I'm gonna you pay timer money on the thing. It's like I've got it saved up and like allotted for that. I think that is where I will probably go for my first one. The second
Nice.
they let me get my grubby mitts on it, because I think it's still in pre-order last I checked. So, but yeah, I'm gonna go Filament Land as soon as I can.
Yeah, we're seeing a lot of the was it a Kickstarter? The Kickstarter backers are getting their printers right now, and the more I'm seeing on it, the better. I've also been doing the thing I've learned to do since we've had our printer problems with some of the ones we've talked about in the show, of monitoring how the bad ones are going and how they're responding to the errors. So very low. It looks like it's a very low failure rate. There seems to be a recurring problem right now with some of their printers with the X. I don't know if it's the X axis or the Y axis. One of the lateral axes, the motor won't go all the way. And what they are asking people to do there is to just send the printer back and they're getting replacements. That seems to be a low threshold, and they are immediately switching to send us the printer and we'll replace it mode, which, listen, Elegoo, I like that option much better than sending me things I have to solder. So
C Catlet says they did get all the Kickstarter fulfilled.
Yes, awesome, very awesome. So yes, I am also super tempted by the Bamboo, and I'm like, $700 ain't that much.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm still not there for that yet, but
yeah, I mean, again for that convenience and speed factor, I'm just like, okay, I'll bite on that. But I might also just try sort of a smaller one just to mess around on it. But Filament, from what I've seen on it, just still seems to have a high learning curve and be a bit fussy, and I just haven't prioritized the cycles to devote to it yet. Maybe one day I will, but right now,
Right.
100% agree. Yeah. Learning curve was much more daunting for me, especially because the community definitely just expects you can get in there and fix it yourself or mod it yourself, and I'm like,
Yeah, I've mentioned it on the podcast before, but it definitely has that like hot rod car enthusiast culture involved with 3D printing. When I start asking, what should I print first, the recommendations are replacement parts for the printer I just put together, and I'm like, wait, exactly. I want a toy, I want castles, I want dragons, not a better L bracket.
But yeah, I have hard time even printing the dinghies and the calibration tools. Like I just want to go. I want castle wall now.
And this ties into our first segment, which is what you're working on right now. And what I'm working on right now is I'm searching for the perfect tower to print. So I told Kristen this a little bit in some chat before, which is I have a formative moment in my early gaming life of playing the Ultima PC games. This is like when wee little tiny Param was like first discovering game stores and boys and other things you do at the age of 13. And I was remember very clearly exploring this first open world RPG that I've ever played, and oh my gosh, there's this weird tower just randomly in the woods, not connected to the storyline or anything. It's just this completely optional piece of content, and it's got a whole secret dungeon and lots of cool text and stories, and it's just like, this is what RPGs can be. It can be so much more things. And then of course D&D has happened and lots of other games have happened since then, but I still remember fondly towers and wood. So I want to build a game table. This is kind of will tangentially tie into what we're doing. I want to build this really cool forest game table, like just like forest ruins with like this big old wizard's tower as a feature element for some of my Age of Fantasy games, or to use it in a D&D game or something like that. And I So right now I'm on the lookout. I've found some really cool towers from Printable Scenery. Arium Terrain has hooked me up. The ruined tower I think looks really cool. That's part of their Tempest Hold set. Some of the stuff that didn't is what they released. Some of the Kickstarter things that didn't fund as an add-on you could purchase later, which is an interesting approach to Kickstarter add-ons that don't get funding. I've never seen that happen before, so that's super neat. And also, there's some really cool stuff from Ian Lovecraft that's got me looking. But here's the key: I have to. It's big, so I have to print it in filament, and I don't want to spend days and months printing this. So I don't mind printing one floor of the tower at a time, but I don't want to spend multiple prints on the same floor, which is like that's my line in the sand. At least it needs to fit
Interesting
all
choice.
all the floor has to fit on one print bed, so that this thing is done in a week instead of a month. Because I found this really awesome tower from Cast and Play, this like rickety old wizard tower that leans in every direction and has like shuttles and things popped off of it. And I did the estimate. It'll take me a full month of printing to get this thing, and I don't want to spend that much time nursing a printer that I'm not sure I can handle right now.
So, question: is it playable interior for sure? Then
I don't actually care about the playable interiors, but good luck finding big old towers these days that don't have it.
Well, see, I would require it. And it sounds like Alex is saying, stop it all. You just got Pathfinder 2 Kingmaker book bundle and needs to print all the buildings. Sorry, Alex, we're going to keep talking about buildings quite a bit, I think, in this one. Yeah, so no playable interior isn't required. That's interesting. So, but you want it single level print, single piece level prints, right? Is what you're saying?
Yeah. I don't want. So like, there's this like I said, the really cool one from Cast and Play. It would take 3 print beds just to get the ground floor done. And I don't want to, like in each of those are like 20+ hour prints, and I'm like, no, thank you, no, thank you. I don't want to spend a week and just have a rock. I want to have the tower at least recognizable. But hey, maybe I'm just not committed enough for this. But yeah, that's where I'm at right now. So send me your tower recommendations, people. I would love to hear them. And so that's what I'm working on. Kristen, what are you working on?
Well, I started a new in-person D&D game a couple weeks ago, and we were talking about how it was so cool to just materialize these things so quickly. And I got my PCs all put together very quickly, and I've been using a lot of the Dungeons and Lasers tiles stuff, but I also am looking for buildings, specifically because the upper level of the city is basically being like built upon by an elven society. So imagine like a human city that has had these elves come in and save the day for them, and as a reward, they're being allowed to build their big crystalline, beautiful elven city on top. And right now it's called the Sky Tower. So I'm looking for it's a hard build to fit. I'm looking for like lower level architecture looks, maybe more traditional fantasies, like either maybe Middle Eastern fantasy vibe kind of be cool. I don't mind if it's necessarily more European because it's culturally diverse. The area, it's like a blending area, so there could be any numbers of architecture styles. But then I want it transitioning into some sort of crystalline structure. So this is going to be a rough one, I think.
You're going to have to kit bash.
But I saw today in the November preview for OPR that there are buildings that have crystalline things growing off of them on the top, and it will be the basis, I think.
Demons of Lust buildings.
Yes, but they're awesome. and are we surprised that I would be drawn to the Demons of Lust buildings? No. So yeah, that's where I think I'm headed, because I want to start building out that. The other thing I'm going to have to do is some combination of printing and foam sculpting, because the city itself, High Falls, is vertical and it is built into waterfalls. And so I want to get some terrain pieces, because you got to have like a combat on bridges over waterfalls and stuff. It's got to happen sometime in the game, and I've got to start building that out. It's going to take a bit. So
Quinn, what are you working on?
A few things. So one of the small ones I've got is because my brain just does not know restraint on hobbies, and I've just gotten into Flesh and Blood, the card game.
Okay.
It's amazing. That's for a whole other podcast. But what's relevant here is I found some STLs for like different tokens and stuff that you use in the game. So I was just like, oh, I'll just go print them out. They'll take 30 minutes or something, and then I'll have a bunch of tokens to use. So that's like my small little project. A bigger project is the high elves that I was printing out for my partner. I played some test games with them, and some of the cool models that I really love. Like I have this really incredible Phoenix print that I love, but Phoenix isn't one-page rules, or like in the current set, like they're like okay. So sort of changing the list around. So I'm like editing, re-editing the list and including sort of more archers and stuff. So I'm printing that out. And then the bigger project I've got on the burner right now, and I'm like almost halfway through it, is I found some ghouls. I was thinking about extending or like doing something new with a vampiric undead army, but I want to like focus on ghouls, like just like make a sort of like a flesh eater court style all ghouls army. And I found these really incredible they're like Haven ghouls by I think Rocket Pig. And they're like really awesome sort of Dark Soul things. And then these other ones, I cannot remember off the top of my head where they're from, but there are these just great ones with like little skeleton bases and a couple of other things. And then the last part, I think the part that started it was this corpse cart from Bestiarum minis.
Yes. Oh, good.
Oh, it's so perfect. And I was just like, I'm going to make my whole army around that thing. And then it would just sort of like expand it out. So I'm like halfway through printing out like a ghouls based army. And that's going to be awesome.
I mean, you're talking high elves and undead. That's been like my last year of printing. Exactly the same thing. So I can feel you right there. So are you using? You mentioned you're playing one-page rules. Are you using the new beta stuff, the 2.50 stuff?
Yeah. Like I'm using 250 pretty much exclusively. It's like really balanced, runs well. I have printed. So it's obviously compatible. I have a whole bunch of Age of Sigmar stuff that I can sort of like slot in, but stuff I've actually printed specifically for it. I have 1,000 points of. I started 1,000 points and then just sort of add as I go.
Right.
So so for Beastmen, Beastmen are my biggest ones. I have like maybe close to 2,000 points of Beastmen that I've printed out. Mostly the OPR, a couple of choice ones from BCR. They're like my favorite model maker. Beastmen, Deep Sea Elves. I found the Titan Forge Abyssal Merfolk set is incredible for them. And Vampiric Undead, and High Elves, Ogres. I have like a Witch Hunter Ogre theme army.
I've been seeing those. Those look so good. That's probably going to be...
Oh, it's so good. Yeah. Sorry, what were you saying?
That's probably going to be one of the ones you bring up when we hit the topic today, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So yeah, like I have I guess like 4 or 5 armies I've printed out. Oh, and Saurians. I've just been printing like all the armies basically.
So in 250, you can still play 2 different armies, right?
Yeah, you can do like allies and stuff.
So if you pick up Mammoth Factory, I believe did an undead Sea Elf Merfolk set, and then you could actually bridge and have an undead Sea Elf army like mixed. So if you wanted just like something really unusual, there you go.
That would be awesome.
I loved that they did that because it was so different, to mix those two things like that. So anyway,
that's great.
So that does bring us into the topic, which is this is a topic that's going to sound a whole lot like an extended what we're working on segment. But I noticed that when I was chatting with Quinn on Twitter and the things that you were excited about followed the trend that I hit when I was getting into printing, where you suddenly have all this freedom. Like suddenly, like if you were a nerd like me in the 80s and 90s and 2000s, and you look at a pewter miniature and like, this is gold. This cost you a whole week allowance just to get this one thing, and there's like Warhammer cost $1 billion. You're never going to be able to afford that. And really cool looking terrain is only for the rich kid's house. That, like, seriously, Dwarven Forge, you have to take out a second mortgage to build a table of that. And then with 3D printing, not like, yes, like we talk about the freedom, but one of the realities is holy crap, anything you want can be had incredibly cheaply as long as you got time, which means that you can get expired. And it's nothing to look at one model that you just fall in love with. And it's like, I had no plans to do anything like this, but seeing this one perfect 3D printed model, and now suddenly I'm making an entire army based on this one model, just so I have an excuse to include this model, or I'm building an entire dungeon or starting a new D&D game so that I can have this as my big bad evil person. We're going to be talking about some of the models that have inspired us to get in over our head and to further bury ourselves in our piles of resin printed shame. So, Kristen, do you want to lead us off with a model that has inspired a project for you?
Inspired a project? Okay. I'm going to go with also relevant to possible news later in this episode, maybe. Broken Anvil did a set of Chaos Knights, and it was so weird for me because I'm big into the demon armies. I love all the demon minis. I usually kind of skirt around the human aspect, but that Chaos Knight vibed so hard with the old Warhammer Quest Chaos Knight mini, I want to say. Like, it felt like that. And just the idea of like kind of clicking back to the nostalgia factor. I also realized that, like, playing OPR or other similar games where you have your chaos type faction, your demon faction, they're the glue, right, that keep your other two factions together, right? So like if I was playing, war and change, I could still have some, chaos warriors. Yeah, exactly, those exact ones. And like, it just vibed so much nostalgia to me, and yet also kind of became the fitting piece to join whatever other chaos factions I want to incorporate into an army. That I was like, okay, I just got to paint a bunch of them. And it gave me an opportunity to do chain painting with different types of speed paint. So I believe I did that contrast. I did army painter speed paints versus green stuff intensity inks on those to compare a bunch of them. And it was cool to have a whole army in that setup to compare those. So it worked out really well for a whole bunch of reasons.
And note that I said this was models that inspire projects, not models that inspire projects we completed. So what was the final state? How far along did this high get you?
That entire squad is fully painted and based. It is
that
done.
Is awesome.
I want to say I ended up with one of them failed on the print and one of them broke. So I still think I ended up with 12. Because I think I originally did 14, but which is probably more than I needed for a squad. But yeah, so that is still there. And I also painted them just off so they work for my City of Seven Seraphs setting as Black Bleeds. So the whole thing just works. They are such a great utility squad or force. Yeah, and 100% complete on it. It's one of the few.
Excellent. All right, coming up next, Quinn. Can you give us one that you were working on?
Yeah. So one. So I have like one that it's not quite a model, but it is like the notion of models. I do game design, right? And one of the things that like I was like whilst I was like busy sort of like loading prints on and like putting some stuff together, I was thinking about I had printed out like a horde of beastmen, right? Like I print out like a big brick of like 20 beastmen on a plate, and I'm putting them together, and I'm sitting there going, oh man, like I was thinking about Diablo and how much like I love this notion of like horde mini, like a horde of guys and one hero against them. And then I was like, I'm looking at a horde of guys on my table that I'm putting together, and I was like, oh man, like wouldn't it be cool if somebody made like a sort of like tabletop Diablo style game? And I was like, oh, like I make games. Like, what if I just started making that game for myself? Like I literally, I'm not gonna be at this point. I have no plans to like sell it or do anything other than maybe share it with friends or stuff. But like I have like a whole. It inspired like just the notion that I can print hordes of models inspired me to make a game where you play like a hero fighting hordes of models out of like portals and stuff like that. And I've like played lots of it and done that stuff. So so generally it is inspired like games from me. Smaller scale. I think one of my favorite ones of being inspired by a model was I found these like witch hunter. There were like two witch hunter ogre ones. There's like one where it's like an ogre in like a duster thing.
Right.
He's just like really, and like a basically like a medieval shotgun. And I was like, oh, that guy's amazing. And then these other one of like these sort of like ogre ogres in sort of top hats and Inquisition gear with like pistols. Yeah, that one. And I was like, oh, and I came up like with the whole story of like these witch hunter ogres. They had actually been converted to this religion by these sort of human missionary things, but then they found out the humans were corrupt, and they were like, oh, well, I guess this was just a test of our loyalty, so we're gonna actually take on these corrupt humans, right? And then we're the true teachers, and then that's sort of like the whole army concept. And so I went and found everything, and so I printed out by OPR rules at 1,000 points. It's only like 19 miniatures. I have them all.
It's not much,
right? I mean, they're ogres, but we've actually played some games with them. The shooters are pretty nasty if they unload on something, and yeah, been playing with them and have them like have one of the units pretty close to fully painted, and so I'm like about maybe like I'd say like a third of the way through that project.
Awesome. So one of the projects that has inspired me to one of the models that inspired me was actually one of my very first prints. Inspired me to get into wargaming and print up this entire human army that I had inspired by Final Fantasy. And that's because Lion Tower Miniatures made these Rokubo Knight models.
Rokubos, I love it.
Yes, these Rokubo Knight models that I have printed out.
Yeah,
a ton of them to start as Leagues of Rordia in my Kings of War army, and of course in the one-page rules they are Griff. These are substitutes in for the Griff Riders, the Griff Hounds and Warhammer equivalent.
Those are amazing.
Yeah,
I have to
amazing.
Say the head armor on them though, Type 0, and I don't know if you've played Type 0 Final Fantasy, but the chocobos in that, especially early in the game, go through some very bad things and made me very sad. So yeah, I'm a little traumatized every time I look at those little hooded armored chocobo heads because
I've got
sad.
The leader of the Rokubo Knights here. He's one of my favorite minis ever.
Yeah,
I also have a version of him on foot that I use, and then I had to have a general. You can't have, or this is the Duke, I believe, in Kings of War.
But yeah, you got to dip into the black chocobo that can fly, right?
Yep. And this was what got me into digital kit bashing, because they did not offer a flying version of the Rokobo Knights. I grabbed a Griffin model and kit bashed the wings onto the Rokobo after I erased its normal wings. And there was this Halfling Paladin model that I forget who makes this one. I don't think they're still making models anymore. And I kit bashed. Actually, had to make the feet because the feet that he came with didn't have bottoms and was hard to slice off. So I had to learn how to sculpt feet in order to make the model, and added him to the top and printed this off all in one piece. And that has forever gotten me addicted to 3D sculpting, thanks to Rokobo Knights.
James says emotional damage about the dying chocobos, and yes, it was very upsetting.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's cool.
So Rordia is like a halfling human team up army in Kings of War. So like that's why I put a halfling in black mage gear and put it on the one. I've got one more. Stall for a minute.
Stall for a minute? Okay. See, Catlet, just so you know, I can't see whatever link I'm assuming our Minder software or something did not let you see the link you wanted me to see. So maybe you can send it to the show email so I can see it. That'd be great.
And the carriage, the arcane carriage, is a knight pulling an airship, and I'm sure you know who these particular twin halfling mages are, if I can get them in focus, that are casting the spell. They did a Poem and Poem mini that I modded, kit bashed into being halflings as the mages that are doing their dual casting spell on the back of this arcane chariot to be my celestial hurricanum or whatever it's called in Warhammer, or the equivalent for the army.
Very cool. Thank you, Catlet, for doing that.
So, Kristen. Awesome. Kristen,
yes,
you can blame this model for this show existing.
Fair enough. So we're back to me for another What's Been Inspired.
Indeed.
So I started a TikTok live Strixhaven game last week.
Okay, great times.
And Strixhaven, one of the colleges is Witherbloom, and all the students are currently affiliated with that. And I was looking for zombie alligators because that's a thing. And surprisingly, and if any creators are listening, there aren't very many zombie alligators. There's only a couple. There's a blighted one and like one other rotting one. I was really thinking there was more. I remember there being more, but I really kind of looked around and I was disappointed. But I also was looking for my High Falls game is a little bit more Magitech, right? And steampunk. So I was overlooking at minis for that and saw in Arcane minis, their Sordain stuff, which is Skies of Sordain, a bunch of sky ships, a bunch of kind of Magitech stuff, very Final Fantasy / Spelljammery kind of, or maybe Eberron. But when I was looking through that pack for the new month, they had these big frog boys. And I also sent a link to you if you want to show the actual like link. But these things were so gross and hideous. I was like, oh, they'll upgrade my zombie alligators. And so I made this and his friend here, and just such evocative minis. I really love them. So it actually caused me to redo my whole encounter, but I think the inspiration was well worth it, and they're fantastic. And they there they go. They looked great on camera.
There's a 1 foot tall version of these.
Yes. They're actually, everything they release is airship battle compatible. So like if you want to, you can print these things off, and they show the scale. Yeah, you can see it right there. The little mini guy. That is a standard medium creature, the little mini. So you can see these things are massive.
So for our listeners, the frogs that Kristen held up were very well painted and were what I would call large scale models.
Yeah, they're definitely like large
the small
for
size
D&D.
Huge.
Yep.
Right. It's on a 2-inch base. circular bases, and with these like really disgusting tongues that have pincher tentacles attached to the tongues, and they're very, very gross. And then in the picture that Kristen sent me, there is a standard 28mm model just standing there rocking the loot. I dig using the Bard for the scale here. And then the frog is a foot tall easily. This would be bigger than the gargantuan. This thing could swallow the aspect of Tiamat in one froggy gulp. That is frightening.
Yes, something that's less visible. If you look really close, you can see it. There's little frog babies on top of them also. Because they have
They
have the little egg pouch things on their back, and then those are scale little mini frogs that you can print off, and they actually have a whole bunch of the little mini frogs also in that set. So if you want to do the big, massive airship battle style one, you can also print off its babies, which are more appropriate for adventurers to fight, which I thought was really cool.
And you can continue your shenanigans of giving me nightmare fuel every single time you print any on this podcast. they're the demon hell frogs that will be in my nightmares tonight. Thank you very much.
All right, well, sorry.
Quinn, you've got some stuff for us next? Actually, I'm looking at the preview here. You've got one that's also on my list.
Okay. So I have so this was one of these ones that I really just didn't have anything like in mind for, but I saw it and I was like, I need that. I need to print it. I need to I'll figure out something to do with it as soon as I can. I didn't even know what army I would include it in, but it's like this kind of like crazy, grotesque. So the undead abomination by Cast Play is just this multi-armed, multi-headed monstrosity, right? I printed out I didn't just print up one of those things. I printed up like 3 or 4 of those things, right? Because I was figuring hey, if it's good enough for one, it's got to be good enough for a few of these guys, just to make them the core of some crazy force. And then I printed out. I started working on sort of the notion of an abomination force. These sort of things crawling out of this undead sea of this undead primordial ooze almost. And so then that led me to finding this theme of it's like an undead tide with sort of a necromancer on it. I'm okay on the necromancer. I love the undead, the sea of undead. And you can just keep space and put any old necromancer you want. So I've been trying to find the perfect necromancer. I actually found when I was posting it in my Discord with my friends, they're like, "Oh, you need a rock wizard on there so you can be sort of all metal." And I actually found this I actually found this miniature of a metal he's holding up his guitar necromancer to put on it. It looks pretty metal. It's pretty amazing. And then I have one. I can't remember the name of the mini. So I should have thought to. But it's to go with the abomination theme. It is this guy with these wings made of hands.
Yeah.
And
my
it's
mini
just
Monster Mini Mayhem. Right? Or
yes.
Yeah, with the wing. Oh, that's such a cool mini.
It's
so
cool. It's incredibly it's not quite grotesque, but it's
I regret to inform you that Quinn and I are vibing.
I noticed. Oh God. How could you do this?
We are brothers of the nightmare.
Yeah. Speaking of which, I just got Dormant God from Fleshcraft that Kickstarter just fulfilled, and those are so cool. So many nightmare minis that are going to be so fun to print.
Oh, really? Hold on. I'm tuning in. I'm
yeah, it's late pledge, still available. Sorry, there's an unintentional early plug.
See, I was kind of hoping this Lord of the Print thing you sent me earlier would be like a sign of change. It's cute mice riding woodland critters.
Hey, I didn't unsub. I'm still waiting for it. I'm gonna get it. Those little sparrow mounts are awesome.
Yeah, but you're gonna turn them into like zombie mice, and they're gonna look. I got the kit bashing. See, it's bursting forth from a hill giant and eating its gut gizzard or something. This is just. Oh.
If I could get there with the kit bashing, maybe, for sure.
So the one that I'm also got in the project is the first one you showed off there, Quinn, the Undying Abomination from Cast and Play, the Hidden Crypt set. I just printed that off to be in Kings of War. The undead have a model called the Goreblight that you're allowed, that basically gives gigantic buffs to zombies around them. So I had previously have printed off a massive undead zombie horde, and they needed a Goreblight. But finding the perfect model to be this large-sized, undead, hideous thing, worthy of the name Goreblight. And this is unfortunately an issue where the official model just really doesn't do that name justice. So I was like, even if I did want to go and get the official model from Mantic Games, it was like, I want something scarier than that. But this Undying Abomination really seems like something that would be at the back end of a horde of zombies, and definitely responsible for the destruction of several small villages.
Yes. Yeah, it's a really, it's like such an evocative piece. Like you I just when I saw it, I was just like, oh, this is going on the print bed immediately. I cannot walk away from that.
Oh. And whose turn is it now? Is it my turn again?
Well, I don't know. Did you count that doubling his as your turn or not?
I mean, I feel like since we shared one, you're due another.
You could get it a second one. Yeah. Do another one.
Okay, fair enough. So I'm making a high enough army. I'm enjoying it very much so. So much so that Last Swords was even kind enough to make me into a high elf. But that was a fun little awesome minute there. And I was not intending to put big giant birds in my army because I'm all like high elves and dragons and things like that. And then Titan Forge had to come out with that awesome high elf set. I think you're printing a lot of that, aren't you, Quinn?
I've been sourcing from a few different places from it. I think I do have a couple Titan Forge ones, but I have them. The Phoenix I've printed is definitely Titan Forge because that Phoenix is epic.
So my suggestion there is to get the point calculator from OPR. I don't know if you know about the point calculator, but you're allowed. It's lets you build your own units. Sorry for the assumption there. And just buff the crap out of that Phoenix because that's too good of a model not to put on the table.
Just call it Grand Phoenix or something.
This is again calling back to a Kings of War model because I need an excuse. I need to find a match for it. So they had this really awesome giant eagle that a person could ride, and so I printed off a couple of the giant eagles. And then I printed off a whole bunch of little eagles, and I was like, I need to fit this in the game somehow. It's too big to be titular giant eagles that are supposed to be in high elf armies. So the Dragon Rider troop would more fit this, but it's so big I can only fit 2 of them on the base that model's supposed to go on. And so this is my first multi-basing, where you make a model that is a whole bunch of models glued to a piece of scenery, which is what I've done here. This is my first attempt at doing that technique, and I was like, I'll do multi-basing. So I've got the elf riding the big old giant freaking eagle, and another big old giant freaking eagle, expertly just tucked right under the wings so that the 2 of them can just barely fit on the base together. And to fill out the quote-unquote model count, so there's supposed to be 6 of these things on the unit. I just found some just normal little eagles, like normal sized eagles, and then printed out a whole bunch of them and just glued them underneath them to make a flock that's following around these giant eagles. And then like done up the terrain and it was like, and got some like rising up elven ruin pillars to use as the flight stands for these birds, so that they like they're just bare, like they're brushing up against the pillars in order to hold them in the air, and like a bunch of like little ruined elven ruin pieces also scattered around the base that's holding up the other eagles. Like one of them like has the tip of its wing barely touching a rune, and that's how it's being held up. And so the project that those inspired, hey, I'm going to do this multi-basing piece of scenery that's all one big playable game unit. And just because I saw this really cool eagle, I had to print.
Nice.
Awesome.
All right. Kristen, you're up again. You got another one for us?
Yes, I do. Alex says I'm on the show, so it's horror all the time. Hopefully these are a little less horrible, but they're kind of creepy. And this is actually a convergent thing where I was looking for something for my High Falls game, and something came out like perfectly at the same time. So these will be my Adzar guardians, that basically the humans that serve the elves. I put a link down there if you want to see it. But the idea being that because not everybody's super excited that the elves have come back to the city and are building on top of it, basically, that their servants hide their identities. And these are from Comet Lord. I believe he calls them, what is it? The Knights of the Perpetual Order. But I even described these guys as being, faceless and having like kind of this implied, mask sort of thing, and tied to this god that uses just a blank kind of face mask. And I was like, it is perfect for, what I needed it to be. And it was like, I couldn't have been more in sync with Scott. I had no idea it was coming, but like the second I saw it, I was like, that is going to be it. That is the thing I need. And it was great. And I just love that there's a kind of like, the community is so big and varied that we're getting that kind of synergy happening. And, I like Scott's style anyway. And yes, most of his stuff's kind of horrifying, so it probably still kind of counts. But I don't think they're terribly horrifying. They're just faceless.
We have C Catlet chiming in here. I think this is for one of your projects. I do like the Comet Lord models. In fact, I was just watching Miniac stream today, and Comet Lord had mailed Miniac a print of those models that he was looking at on stream. So, like, this is the second time today I've seen somebody geek out about this model.
Did Miniac paint them?
No, he opened them once. He was doing like a mail bag opening. I was like, ooh, look at what I got. Ooh, very cool Comet Lord minis. And I'm like, aha, that's great.
Well, he said that there's going to be an assassin that goes with it, and I want to see that, but there hasn't been a preview yet. So I was hoping maybe if did he get the assassin mini, or did you see that?
Probably not. Do not know. There was one that had a really cool hood, though. Okay. So maybe
I'll check it out.
I'm terrible. And see, Catlet sent this, and I think this is meant to be for your
for my bridge battle. I think for the over the waterfalls.
Yeah. I do believe that is what they are implying with this, because this really looks cool.
Whoa.
See, and if I did like some foam core cliff sides underneath it, and then just kind of did some waterfalls, maybe.
Right, absolutely.
That would be really neat. That'd be fun.
Looks like it's Torbridge Cull is from Infinite Dimension Games.
Thank you, C Catlet, for sending
playable interiors.
Oh, yeah,
just like you said. The bridge segments, build it out as big as you want.
I have to say that the it might be ruinous, the cost of the resin, but I have like contemplated, like, what's it like to get one of those like large print bed resin printers to do some of this stuff like that. Like, I've been super curious about that. I feel like it might be so much resin that it stops being economical.
Right.
Or you're like having to worry about,
especially if you have a fail. If you have a fail, it would just be brutal.
So I did the math on this because I was also curious and frustrated with filament, and was like, I don't want to do this filament game. I don't want my new hobby make my printer work instead of my hobby play with cool game things. And so I looked into it. And first, you have to get a printer big enough to accept some of these parts. The closest thing on the market right now within our reach is the Jupiter, which is $1,400 for the printer, which hurts, but hey, big, wonderful printer,
Mm-hmm.
the cost of the resin is really where it gets you. Because even if you're doing really great hollowing and supports, you're still looking at 3 to 4 times the cost that it would cost you in filament printing to get the same model on the table.
Yikes.
Because filament
Yeah,
gets away with printing that wall like stupidly thin, and then the
Yeah.
rest of it is it's basically a plastic balloon. Is how filament does things by default. And to get the same effect with resin, you have to hollow it out yourself. If it's not pre-hollowed, and most of these won't be because they expect you're going to be printing them in filament. You have to do the supports yourself. You'll have to do expert supports to like really preserve the dimensional accuracy, or else you're just going to get like catty corner wonky buildings. And it's going to cost an absolute fortune in resin, and it still is tempting. So I believe I feel you on that. I
Yeah.
just did the math on it, but ooh, like the day
Mm-hmm.
that Elegoo comes out with whatever's bigger than Jupiter that has like the full 210 wide build plate, I see my finances taking a giant hit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, and I just want to say, like, too, like, what's amazing, kind of like with what we're talking about here, is, you know, I feel like a lot of us start with the resin on the like for the value kind of thing of like, oh well, you
Mhm.
could, it's so much cheaper, da da da, and it's sort of that consumerist mind, like, hey, if I print this, if I buy this, do these things, I will like make that value, shortly. Like I think I made my value when I did the calculation in like a couple weeks of printing, right?
Mhm.
But I think the more impressive case for printing is the capability that you get with it to be, like to find to find something on my mini factory that inspires you to go do go create something else, or like to digitally kit bash it, to like fine tune it, like it inspires. It's not just a consumer thing, it is actually this engine for I think sort of for all of us here talking, and lots of other people, like for creative expansion and growth, to make the kind of things you want to see and put on the table, and paint, and do all this other stuff, is like a sort of virtuous cycle.
And absolutely, like I enjoyed the tool as like when I first got my printer. It was I've been super wanting to get into printing for a long time. I bought a few filament based
Mm-hmm.
printers, too much headache to get, and especially those early days when I was like, I'm going to print me out a dungeon, and I'm going to get Fat Dragon Games, the company I used to work for. I'm going to get their product. I'm going to print out a whole dungeon. I'm going to have my own Dwarven Forge, and it took an entire day to print one wall piece.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yes.
And so I agree with you entirely. And now what gets me is I'm going to kit bash this super custom thing. I'm going to learn sculpting. I'm going to like my ex partner was super into this one band, so I'm going to sculpt up their mascot and paint it up and mail it to them, and they're going to be happy. And like I'm the creative aspect and the possibility space, and the fact that I don't need, as a gamer, I do not need to rely on the whims of the big companies being able to produce the cool toys I want. I can just make my own toys, is so freeing.
Mm-hmm.
And all in a very enthusiastic way of saying I agree with everything Quinn just said.
And you can do it all in your slippers.
Yeah. And it also makes it like, it's not like I'm never going to buy a mini again. Like I mean, like
Mhm.
I do buy minis, but when I buy minis, it's I actually enjoy buying minis now, because when I, like I've been eyeing some stuff from like Creature Caster, say, and and there are a couple of like Games Workshop ones I'm looking at, but like it means when I'm buying something that it truly speaks to me in a way that I haven't been able to like find or create myself, and so I really want it. I'm not just trying to keep up, you know, with a collection or keep up with the Jones. There's no FOMO. There's no FOMO to my mini games.
Yep.
Like at all these days. It is just, what do I want, and what would I like to have, and that's like amazing.
Yeah, I can barely even buy a pre-paint anymore because I'm like, I can paint better than that, and I can print something more accurate for my game.
Right.
Yep. I think the best example of this I found a local store in my area that is like a pallet shop. I don't know if that is a local trend, but basically a bunch of discount stuff gets thrown out.
Yep.
And the price gets cheaper as the week goes on. And I'm there on $1 day, and it's like an entire table covered in miniatures from Rune Wars and Guild Ball and
oh wow, those Guild Ball things are cool.
The Kings of Wrath and like all these really cool minis, and I'm just digging through the pile, and I'm like, literally this giant box of 40 minis could be mine for $1. I'm not in love with it. No.
Your will is greater than mine. I would have bought the hell out of that.
And like, did I buy a couple of minis? Yeah, there was this really cool freaking werewolf from Guild Ball that I was like, I want that. That cool werewolf looks great. I want that werewolf. I'll pay $1 for that werewolf. But where like old gamer me would have jumped on the value there and just like hoarded my collection because I'm starved, like a salt starved beast. I need money. I need minis because I'm never going to get this opportunity to get minis again. And it's now just like, I just need the perfect mini. I just need the one that excites me. Does this mini spark joy? Then it does. If it does, then I'll get it. And if it doesn't, I just find something better and print it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I'm so glad you're on the show, Quinn, because I agree with everything you're saying so much, and it's like reliving my early days in mini printing again. It's like this excitement, this wonder, this awesomeness, and also like you're like doing so much more than I am with it lately, so it's awesome.
It's just so fun to. Just explore these things. Now I'm like have moved to the thing. You guys did a thing, a couple of ones about being a resin dealer. Like I'm now a resin dealer to other people, right? Because like I show people, like, I'm like, hey, look, they come to my house, they see like hundreds of miniatures all around the house, and they're like, that's awesome. And I was like, you want some? Right? Like I'm trying to I'm trying to build get like some of my friends into one-page rules. Well, it's like, look. The rules are free. The minis are free. Like I will soak up the $10 to like make you an army, right? So like, here you go. Let's play. It's yours. Let's hobby, and that's really awesome too.
All right,
absolutely.
And that I'm sorry to jump order, but that's a perfect segue to my last option, which is so I've had to sit on this for a little bit. Because this is one-page rules related, and I saw the previews for these months ago and have been squeeing and wanting to build them, but I'm not allowed to because until just today they got announced. These rats are so good. These rats are so good.
They're awesome. Those are great.
Ratmen, but they're not dirty, evil, like disease-covered rat men. They're noble rat men with like proper armor and a degree of like self-respect and cleanliness. And like the knight all have like actual decorations, and their suits of armor all look nice and shiny. And also they're male and female versions of every single mini. So like nice. I can have rat women in here, and so the best part, they only have a little bit of it on the preview, but Tano showed this off on the stream, and I don't know if you can see it very much, but the rat men's also have these things that they're calling the little buddies, that are basically just tiny little mice people that hang around and help the big rats out. And so like there's one that you can see in this preview of this tiny little rat hanging onto a cannonball, trying to get it over to the cannon launcher. And there's so many that they showed off in some of the preview streams that I can talk about, and so many more I can't talk about at all. But because so disclosure, I work for One Page Rules, so there's some inherent bias here. I'll be showing a link to. I'll post a link to it. It's the public announcement post that got announced today. Square Peg.
Yep.
And it's just like I've been kind of teasing. It's been a project in the back of my mind of making a cute mouseling version of a rat army instead of like, because I'm really just not into like the gooey, gunky, diseasey stuff that a lot of the rats go with. And
mine
then
would totally be that Skaven Titan Forge plague rats.
I know. But I saw this red wall theming they've got going for these, and they're just like, yes, sign me up. And I've got those broken anvil cool rat people that can go with them so well.
And that new Lord of the Print thing will go with it too.
Yeah, those mice riding the squirrels and stuff. And so like a lot of me have been excited for months, Kristen, wanting to print and play with these, but like can't because, you know, reasons. Yep. And I want them so much. And
this is like very mouse guard.
This has kicked my dinosaur army to the side. Like their little squirmy feet has like field punted my Tyrannosaurus away. And there's like, ooh, very cute rat people. Yes. All right, Quinn, can you give us the last one for the day?
Sure. So this one is just a solo one. This one didn't inspire an army, but it is so that game that I have been making, this sort of like tabletop Diablo-esque game. It's called Hell Gambit, and like the super short of it is like the sort of gods made a deal with made a bet with the devils of like. Mm-hmm. We bet if we leave the planet in the hands of like just the humans and we don't intervene at all, that you can't turn it into hell on earth, right? And if we win the bet when we come back for like, you know, like after a decade, you have to like leave and never mess with mortals forever. And if we lose, well, you turn it into hell on earth, so you win, right? And so they're like bet, and then before the gods leave, they basically sort of activate all of their sort of children who like they had kept powerless and stuff like that in sort of like, you know, like all the demigods, they activated it. You're a demigod, and then you're like there to fight the devils. And so sometimes what I see, so I have like different characters that I have in the game, and it's miniatures agnostic, but sometimes I see a mini and it actually inspires one of the characters that I've built for the game. I've built like 3 or 4 of them so far. Mm-hmm. And there's this one from Bestiarium, the Ronin. And he's got like all these blades, and he like gave me this inspiration for a character, the swordsman, and the swordsman's whole shtick is that he's basically like, you know, first he was a typical shonen protagonist arc, where he's like, I want to be the best, and he, you know, went and became the best swordsman in the planet, and he was like, oh, and then he went into his One Punch Man arc, where he's like, wow, this really sucks. I'm bored, right? And then he was like, I know. I will go find a cursed blade of legend, and then I will use that as my weapon. So I will fight on hard mode, right, with this like cursed blade that's half trying to kill me, and then like see what that does. And he did it. He almost got killed. He won. And then he was like, that's cool. And then he got good with that weapon. And then he's like, oh, I guess I need another one. Right. And then so now he's like been going around collecting. He basically has his whole back and like front like full of these cursed blades that he like uses. So he's just this cursed swordsman trying to, you know, be better through risking defeat on it. And I just like it was one of these things where I saw that mini. And the whole story just sort of like exploded right there. So it was kind of fun. And did I send the preview?
You did, but it's 404ing on me, so I can't pull the visual up for it. But it's from Bestiarium Miniatures?
Yeah, the Ronin for Bestiarium.
Yeah, and I'm sorry for not being able to pull that up, but the links just are dead ending for me. I think you have it privately access, so and I
Probably
don't.
through the actual.
Oh,
Yeah,
no.
yeah, that's unfortunate. That is unfortunate when that does happen, but it I did manage to find and look at it, but I'm not in a picture big enough to share on screen. It looks so cool, like like really old grizzled sword fighter, just bristling with swords. I can dig it. I can absolutely dig it. That is awesome. So we are run out of time. Actually, we've gone over with excitement. So that's fortunate, but I'm super glad to have gotten to chat with you, Quinn. Absolutely. If you could you give us a shout out to where people can follow you, find some of your stuff, or any other cool projects you want to draw attention to?
Yeah, you can follow me and my rantings and ravings about all sorts of games and hobbies and sometimes other stuff, I don't know, on QH_Murphy on Twitter. And I'm sprinkled around a bunch of Paizo stuff. Some of the more recent things is I have an adventure in the Dark Archive called Tomorrow's Feast. You should definitely play it. It's really cool. I'm not going to say anything else about it because it will spoil it. And then I also wrote a whole adventure book, the second book in the Strength of Thousands adventure path. Called "Spoken on the Song Wind." I wrote the whole adventure, and that you should also play that and play the first adventure on that too. It's a really amazing adventure path. And yeah, and then I'm just sprinkling around a bunch of stuff.
Anything you want to shout out to, Kristen?
No, we've gone long enough today. I think I'm good.
All right. So, and until next time, everyone, if you want to find more of our stuff, you can do so at printyourgames.com, where you'll find links to our socials and all the other wonderful stuff. If you want to help out the podcast, one of the best things you can do is give us a rating on iTunes or Spotify. A review is extra helpful. Spreading the word, the like, subscribe, the bell icon, all the things that happen there. Giving us a comment on YouTube, just basically anything to just participate in the conversation helps the podcast a ton, and we appreciate it. If you want to contact us, you can do so over at podcast@printyourgames.com. And until next time, I'm Jefferson J. Thacker, also known as Perrin.
I'm Kristen Sowards, also known as Seventh Mastery. Don't forget to use your screen protector.
Keep printing, everybody.